Well, hello and welcome into another exciting episode of The Scene. Here with us today is freelance audio engineer, musician, and what else do you do, Matt? Jeez. Matt Buehner.
The easiest, I think, way to put it is I just love noise. That's really...
Matt loves noise. That should be the name of your company.
Professional noise person.
Well, Matt Buehner, thank you so much for joining The Scene here. This is our first time doing it over the internet live. I hope we make it through.
Yeah. Oh, we'll be fine. We got an audio nerd on one end and an immaculate host on the other. What problems could we have that we can't surmount?
I love it. Well, I appreciate the kind words. So, Matt, we've met in person a couple of times now through our travels, but for our listeners, why don't you just give us a quick, who is Matt Buehner?
Well, okay, so first things first, the Midwestern pronunciation would be Buehner.
Beaner. I was avoiding it for the sake of nobody wants beaners in their weed. Not that the kids know what that is anymore.
It's the I was born in California. I started my recording career in Southern California. When I'm out there, my last name is pronounced Buehner. For obvious reasons. And to circumvent this entirely, my stage name with the outside kids is my middle name. It's just Matt Clayton. It's a lot easier than explaining that it's German and not just racist. So anyway, that's got that out of the way. I'm a full audio nerd. I started as a musician, playing drums since about 3. Had a family friend's drum kit in my basement. My brother in junior high got into drums too, so we had 2 drum kits in the basement. Realized at one point that there were other sounds on AC/DC's Back in Black other than drums, so I had to go figure out what those were. Got my first guitar, just tried to learn every Angus Young solo and Slash solo I possibly could, and around that time started my first little band in high school, and we got into recording our own demos, and the drummer from that band, actually a Rapid City native named Lee Putnam, a good buddy of mine. His dad's Kenny Putnam, the fiddle player, has played with Hee Haw and everybody. He's phenomenal. Actually get to record him coming up here in a little bit, which I'm stoked for.
How fun that's going to be.
Yeah, but Lee got way into the recording side of stuff, and I did with him in that adventure, and we ended up going to Full Sail for audio engineering together. And there I met my buddy Kata, who is now the other half of my... our audio company, 3DB Soundworks. He's based out of San Diego and is a mix mastering engineer specializing in Atmos, surround sound, audio mixes, most recently for Sony Japan. He's actually bringing a lot of really, really just dope Japanese hard rock, like, I don't know, like what specific subgenre of metal, but they crush. They're going to be doing some tours of the States, and he's actually building them out Sprinter vans and all the equipment to do that now. So we cut our teeth in the LA music scene, started at the largest privately owned scoring stage in Los Angeles at the time, unpaid intern, have so many, I got 800 podcasts worth of horror stories from those days. We'll save those for later.
Well, we have a Patreon, Matt. That's where we keep those episodes.
There you go. Perfect. We'll do an in-depth one. We'll call that Matt's audio therapy sessions. That'll be... But yeah, I cut my teeth in doing audio there and bounced around the country for a bit in a couple touring bands in different situations. And COVID happened, and I was living north of San Francisco and had just started getting into running sound for venues, basically taking all that recording experience and just making it loud for bands at shows. And then COVID shut all the venues down. I was still paying Bay Area rent for 9 months and ended a relationship, and we lived together for 3 months in quarantine together. And I just decided, screw that, let's move back to the motherland, and landed back here with zero plan, zero intention. I didn't know if I was staying or going or moving to San Diego or what. And Tom Willock from Groove Daddy and Toadstool Jamboree told me to go check out the open mic at Abe's. And going there and meeting Dexter from formerly Modern Folklore, and he's Dexter J Project now. He's the booker and one of the, owner managers at Abe's. I ended up bartending there, ended up turning into their front of house audio engineer. Ran a show with Dead Marthas and Camp Comfort. That's where I met the Camp Comfort boys. They hired me damn near on the spot to do front of house for all their shows. And the next morning, Zach, their drummer, came in, albeit slightly hungover, to pick up gear. And I was bartending. I used to have the Sunday morning brunch shift. And I just asked him if he is into pop punk. And he goes, yeah. Like, you want to jam some in like an hour when I get off? He's like, yeah, I got a rehearsal studio literally down that hallway. So that was the first, what became the first Outside Kids rehearsal. So yeah, just, I don't know, like, followed the audio nerdness, followed the noise to its logical conclusion, and then just came back home where, people don't suck.
Well, that's such an awesome kind of origin story to bring us to where we met the first time. So the first time that I met you was last summer. You were traveling with Camp Comfort. They were playing the Levitt, and the Outside Kids, really a brand new thing in that moment still, right? You guys had one prior show, I think, or maybe two to that point.
Yeah, not many. So the Outside Kids started as just my studio band. It was all me. It was just a challenge to myself to write songs I liked, play all the parts, record it all myself, mix as much of it as I could myself, and have Kata finish it. And last year, meeting Zach and Joel, bass player for Camp Comfort and now Outside Kids, and meeting Pat, who at the time was in Modern Folklore, and Pat switched instruments like every show almost, from bass to 6-string bass to baritone to guitar, and Pat's just a string 6-shooter wizard. So I didn't plan on doing a ton of shows. I just was stoked to have a band that wanted to play these songs. And then Camp Comfort wanted me to come mix all the shows front of house. And we realized, obviously, we share a rhythm section pretty much with Pat and Joel. So they could cut a half hour off their set on the times they needed to if they had a lot of time to fill, and have us open. So by the blessing of being friends with them and going to all these shows to work, to do front of house, we got to play an absurd amount of shows last year as a brand new band on the scene. I mean, brand new in the sense that nobody's heard of the Outside Kids, but I've been doing Outside Kids music since pretty much 2015. Some of those songs I wrote in high school. But yeah, just the entity itself was unknown. And I mean, I owe Camp a huge debt of gratitude in 1,000 different ways, but like that jumpstart last year is why Outside Kids is shooting a music video last week, and we're literally in a couple hours here going to record our next single that we actually wrote as a band. We're no longer just me alone in a basement seeing what I can do. Now it's 4 dudes alone in a basement seeing what we can do.
Well, and I love all of that. Right. Yeah. Just the natural progression of how things evolve. And really, I mean, it doesn't happen by accident. You came here, you're putting your energy and your love for noise out there, and it's being reciprocated. Right. And what a group of guys to fall into. Camp Comfort and I, we have deep roots and deep history with each other. I've known Nevada for, 20 plus years now.
Nice. So I was gonna say, that's your story too. Like I met you at that show. Dope. I love the Levitt. I love giant, large format consoles and liner. The technical side of mixing a show on that huge stage just makes me happy. That's where my brain's at. But running into you there, and then you came out to our follow-up show, like, you're on the same trajectory, man. You're following following your noise, following your passion here, and that's why you're doing this. Which, thank you, by the way, for shining a big old spotlight on what's going on here.
Well, your calling is to make all the noise sound good in the studio, and mine's just to keep flapping my gums on this podcast, I guess, and to keep telling everybody on the street about the scene, right? That's kind of how we landed on the name of the podcast, and it was just, I'm constantly having these conversations with people out in the wild, and it's always coming around to the same thing. Gosh, there needs to be this. Gosh, there needs to be that. And I finally got sick of waiting for someone else to do it. I was like, apparently I'm going to have to be the one to do these things and to set it all up and to be the starts of all of these things, right? Maybe
I see what you did there.
Maybe it has something to do with it, right?
Yeah, it's intention. It's you put out, your intention is to bring awareness to and highlight what's happening, and it's people, it's working.
Right. And it's also the awareness that there's no way that I can do it all on my own. I
Exactly.
need a team. And that's really what the scene is about talking to the team that's already there, you and the Camp Comfort boys and all these friends. I just did podcasts with Devin Sands, Clayton Ryan, Mitchell Stafford,
Heck yeah.
and then
The
we put
homies.
all of these guys on the radio, on our podcast, on the other, on the other episodes, reviewing Clayton's music and Devin's music and introducing this music to everybody. Right. So there's so much synergy already happening. It's just a matter of, me turning on the microphone now and saying, hey, Matt, can you kind of dink around with this app with me and see if we can make this work? Or can you call me and give me 15 minutes of time and let's wrap? And this isn't a one-off thing, right?
Yeah,
we can catch up on a routine basis. Anytime you have something to promote, a big show, a big something, this is your content, right? So that's kind of, it's so necessary, right?
Yes, I was going to say that's the beauty of the scene in this state, in this region. Like I've had, depending on the time and the location, I've either had the pleasure or displeasure to have tried to do music in a few different environments in Denver, Northern California, Southern. We toured the West Coast a bunch, and the Midwestern ethos, or not ethos, the basic Midwest perspective of we take care of each other, we listen to each other. In general, it's just, I don't want to just like blanket say people are nicer here, because that's not how it works. The culture is just different.
Community means more here than it does. And here, Matt, and listen to me, and I have a theory on this, and humor me if you will.
Of course.
That hard winters make hard people, and hard people make good communities, right? You got to live through some stuff together every year. And if you live in a comfortable life in California and you have that, you don't ever need your neighbors, right?
Well, I think it's that plus the population density. Like when you are surrounded by millions of people, like people end up becoming as much of an obstacle to progress or happiness or just getting through your
daily life. Traffic,
and they're all strangers. So
I've spent a little time in LA myself, Matt. I don't miss it one bit.
And there is a beauty to that, and the fact that many people existing together works and produces the things that the LA music scene over history is world changing. Like you can't have that level of caliber of musicians happening over 50 years without that meat grinder of the music industry and having that many people there.
Right.
But like, again,
you have to be able to mine the diamonds out of the rough, and you need a lot of coal to do that.
Yeah. But the difference now, thanks to probably the internet and there's a lot of turtles. There's a lot of turtles like myself that came home mid COVID. Like we can all go experience and learn from the meat grinder, so to speak, and we can take the important lessons back from that and talk about them together on, say, a podcast or just in person, hanging out and propel each other forward without there's no music industry competition here. We're not all there's no famine. There's less of a famine mentality for shows, for getting your music out, for attention, for promote. There's not I got to get one up on this guy. It's no, let's go play a show together. I dig this song. I want to play it. It's just so synergistic. Or I'll give you a bunch of $10 Silicon Valley words here, but it just feels good. That's
Well, and what we say here is it's collaboration, not competition. And I think nothing embodies that more than the scene. This podcast, the scene in general, the way that you kind of fell in to fill a need with Camp Comfort, right? Because you can't do it all. They were a big band, and it was something as a fan of theirs, right? That it was always it could be better though, right? And it's nothing that you guys are doing that would make it better or worse. And it's something that most people don't think about, and usually is a afterthought. Sound is very important to us. My wife Danielle runs sound in our band because it's important to me. I'm not just going to kind of freewheel it from the stage. Those days are long gone, right?
Hard to hear in the distance.
Yeah, well, and I'm not a trained and schooled audio engineer, and I've never had an in-depth conversation or a conversation at all with somebody who is. Do you mind? I know we don't have a ton of time here, but can you explain And here's the difference that I want to, because I know the school is valuable, right? But are the things that you learned, I feel like you could have learned those away from school. You could have learned those on the internet, the engineering side. Was school more valuable to you because of the connections that it gave you, either through the school and mentorship programs or connections there, or just like you said, meeting your partner in 3DB and then spurning on to bigger and better things from there?
Yeah, well, two things. One, we can run over time as far as I'm concerned. Just a heads up. Unless you want to keep it to a specific format.
Nope.
Perfect.
I just didn't want to keep you.
So the way to put it is, in general, the main thing I got out of that was the networking was like that. That's the most tangible, obvious benefit of having gone there. There's some connections, like one of the bands that signed to Sony Japan. It's called Survive Said the Prophet. Their singer was a classmate of ours and is, a friend of Keita's from going to school there. They're one of the biggest bands in Japan, and Keita's bringing them to tour the States, because we met him primarily because we met him at Full Sail. Like, so, Full Sail brought a bunch of people who are dedicated enough to want to go spend money on pursuing this to show up and do it. Another instance, did you watch The Voice last season?
A little bit tuned in and out. That was Rowan's season, right? Or are you talking the fall season?
Rowan was a couple years back and she crushed, obviously, but the winner of the last season was a guy named Huntley.
So Ruby, I got a funny story about the runner-up. Ruby is a girl that I've followed for the last 3 or 4 years, just cursory online, and as she was coming up, and I've watched her whole journey,
Nice.
now from a small town singer to international superstar. But carry on about Huntley. Sorry.
Yeah, so Huntley was a classmate at Full Sail. First time I saw him, he was sitting on the bench in between classes, singing in what is now his relatively world famous voice. And we hung out, wrote songs, and screwed around. And generally we're just 19-year-olds, bumbling our way through college. But we haven't kept super close in touch. But we were friends. It was a connection. That's the type of person that kind of came that's doing stuff that I met at Full Sail. So,
well, and you never know what point in his career that he might go, God, I need somebody to do this. who in the, you know what I mean? And you're on LinkedIn or you're on whatever, and your old classmate is there. Yeah, man.
Yeah,
we so many connections like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
how
so
cool.
To fully answer the question, there is a baseline level. Think of it like mechanic school. If you go do a vocational program on engine maintenance and engine or car repair, automotive repair in general, you're going to graduate with a baseline understanding of here are the components of locomotion and combustion. And, it's not going to, you go into a mechanic shop to fix a car and you're not going to know shit about fixing the car, right? Because you haven't done it yet, but you have the basic picture to compare the problem to fix it. That is the main educational portion I got out of Full Sail. Was there is a baseline structure to how all audio systems work. Signal flow, for instance, is the same for any recording or front of house console, no matter how many blinky lights are on it or whether you control it with an iPad or faders. It's all input gain through output gain, and everything that happens in between there is relatively cut and dried. So yes, I got a baseline understanding from school, a baseline technical knowledge that I do use on the daily. Yes, you can learn it externally. It's just harder externally because you don't have anyone else pointing out and saying, this is the important thing to remember for everything. So
having good teachers, there's a lot to be said for that.
And that's the hard part. How I mix, especially in a studio environment, I primarily taught myself that by watching every YouTube video that Chris Lord-Alge ever put out. He's one of my favorite mix engineers. He mixed Green Day's American Idiot and My Chemical Romance's Black Parade, and literally half of the hits on the radio for the last 20, 30 years. If you look up his IMDb.
So it's really no different than being a musician. You go to what you like, you listen to that, you emulate that, AC/DC if you're some young teenager. And that is exactly it. It's the same it's the same chasing down of an emotion through sound. The difference is you're as an engineer, you're more reactive to, okay, I heard this, I changed this, it feels like this. And when you're playing, obviously you need to be directly in the moment because you are creating while listening simultaneously. But it's the same, to me, it feels like the same part of my brain, just a different time frame.
if that
Have
makes any
you
sense.
always had an affinity for the production, the audio engineering side? I mean, was that an early on thing, or was that when you were going, well, I don't want to pursue performance at Full Sail, or how did it come about to be audio engineering?
So Full Sail is primarily the technical arts. That would be recording engineering, front of house, live sound engineering. They had a cinematography,
So
video
you had
program,
decided
and
before, obviously, that production and behind the scenes stuff was what you wanted to learn.
honestly, what it was is I had enough people chirping in my ear that don't really know outside of like the general opinion of society that trying to make it as a musician in terms of career and income is a crapshoot at best. So all of the influences that be in terms of family and other musicians older than me whose opinions I trusted were like go learn a secondary skill, go learn something tangential to music that will be a fallback, that will be a helpful, even as you're pursuing music, playing original music, writing songs, connecting to people through that is the primary driving inspiration for me for any of this, for all of it. Helping camp achieve that goal on the technical end is my personal joy of working with them consistently, both in the studio and at shows. But I got really lucky in some ways. Out of all the horror stories in LA, there is one gentleman, his name's Devin Bronson. When he was 17, he was Avril Lavigne's creative director and guitar player for her tours and shows. I don't know if he was that title at that age, but he was her guitar player then. Phenomenal studio guitar player. He produced a lot of Sebastian Bach's new stuff. I believe he produced it. He definitely played on it. And he hired me basically to help him record demos for songs in his apartment that he was shopping around to different record labels in LA. And then they would go get this band to want to record the song. And he'd go do it, quote unquote, for real. So I got paid to do a bunch of reps with a incredibly talented studio guitar player. And every time I would record him and take those tracks home to edit, I would, hyper analyze it because that's what I'm doing as an editor. And then as soon as I was done with the work, I would pull my guitar out and try to figure out how the hell he did that with his hands. So I learned slash stole, Devin, if you ever hear this, thank you. I learned and stole so many little tricks, and you can hear them all over Outside Kid stuff, especially our newest one. So many little earworm things that you can do with a guitar to make the next moment exciting. And that, honestly, that's what drives me to get better at engineering is I will learn how to play guitar better so I don't have to edit it. And then I will record something that I can't quite play and have to edit it to be able to have it sound right. And then I'll go, well, I don't want to have to edit this again because editing's boring. So let's become better at guitar. So the next time I don't have to edit it. And that's the circle I've been chasing my tail on for the last, 15 years.
That's an incredible circle to be trapped in.
It's goofy at times, but it's fun.
Well,
fun
and it's
most of the time.
your passion. I mean, comes out, and you're a phenomenal guitar player too. I was blown
Thank you.
away watching your guys' show at Monk's there when we saw you, and following along. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of the Outside Kids. Actually, a little teaser for our listeners. We're going to have the whole gang on for a future episode, so stay tuned for that.
And I can send you, I think we're probably by that time, I think I should have final mix for our single that hasn't been heard yet. So maybe we can premiere a snippet of it on that one.
Well, there we go. You heard it here first, folks. Well, Matt, this has been a fun get to know you episode.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll be talking a lot more in the future, and I know we will with the band, and obviously, we can talk more about the music there. But I wanted to get to know you. Your name came up when me and Mitch were talking last week. We talked a lot about Four Winds Rapid City, which I know the Outside Kids are going to be a part of. We'll obviously talk a lot about that.
That's going to be
coming up too. Yeah, epic. I'm really happy that I get to be a part of that and to kind of come home. And yeah, the passion that you have for, finding guitar licks and all the little tricks and the recording is the passion that I have for bringing all of that music to the people, bringing people out to the shows to see it, and keep finding creative ways to keep building a scene, right? It can't all be big rock shows every night. And that's what I'm kind of trying to train people on is get to know these songwriters, get to know these people and share these stories and share your story stories with them, and you never know when your story might become the next hit. Right.
Yeah.
Like that's the beauty of the scene that we're building. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next Outside Kids album coming here soon. And yeah, everything else that you got going on. Well, Matt, I just thank you so much for jumping on. And anything you want to plug on the way out here?
We've got obviously 4 wins. I'll be engineering, I think 8 or 16 of those shows. I will be playing in the Outside Kids set, and I'm playing drums in another buddy's band. So that's going to be a busy weekend. That's going to be really fun. Thank God for
insane.
So actually,
so I play Thursday. I play Thursday the 20th in Yankton. I'm coming out to play the 21st out at 4 Winds, and then I'm building my own show and producing my own show for the first time at the Icon Event Hall in Sioux Falls, which is a 400 or 500 cap room.
Nice. That's going to be awesome.
So yeah, teaming up with some friends there. So yeah, that's going to be a pretty epic weekend for me. It's going to be a quick kind of in and out job, hitting Rapid City hard. But yeah, I love what Corey and Mitch have built with the whole thing. Obviously, being at AB's, you're going to be a big part of that. And
it'll be
fun. Man, this whole thing that we're building, the way Clayton described it in our podcast that we just released today. And for all of you listeners, timestamping this, we did this while the solar eclipse was taking place on April 8th, nice. 2024.
Get all that good juju in it.
Clayton said when he was growing up that his mother worked at a Barnes and Noble, and on the paint on the wall mural, there was a painting of all the great writers, right? There's Twain and there's all these greats. And he said something to the effect that you need to live your life as if they were painting that picture of you and your friends.
Exactly.
And it was like, yeah, like be your own Mount Rushmore or goats, or you know what I mean? Like be your own goats. I think that's my new, that's a new show thing.
It's an extension of that / interpretation of that is, the Bruce Springsteen has one of my favorite quotes about live shows. He goes, the best shows I've ever played, I walk out on that stage to however many people are there, simultaneously feeling like this is the most important thing happening in the world, and also that it does not matter at all. Like that dichotomy is, you got to have the freedom to not stress about it. You have to have the freedom to fully express and create, and not get in your head about it, not worry about those murals on the wall, so to speak.
Right.
And then also just not question, like you can be that mural on the wall, metaphorically, literally. Yeah.
And the mural would never know that it's being painted.
Exactly.
Right? You don't have that awareness.
Exactly.
Right? You're in the flow.
You're not thinking of paint. Mark Twain wasn't sitting there thinking about getting painted.
No, and I don't think any of us are trying to chase something, and that's what we're really building here. And with the scene is that, we're not, a lot of us are making our home here because this is home to us. We're not trying to chase a dream in Nashville. Now, granted, some of us are doing work there and doing those things. We're not uprooting our lives and going, we need to live there. Thank God for the internet, right?
Yep.
I mean, this thing has made it possible for us to have this conversation, for me to do all my recording. None of my career is even possible without the internet.
Exactly.
So you kind of hit the nail on the head with that earlier.
And that's the joke I made when I first started doing front of house for shows here. And realizing the level of talent in the hills, the number of shows happening, the fact that the local community supports it, the venues pay bands, you can make a living playing shows here in a way that you can anywhere else I've ever
not even close to what when I tell people that come from. So I've been booking a lot of out of town bands and telling them what I can get for them and what there's just like what, and it's where I almost was like, you want to okay, well. You can't come here all the time. We still have to play our gigs too,
Yep.
Yeah, but I think we're building a big regional scene with that. I'm reaching out into Minneapolis, and I know from there you guys shoot down to Denver, and that's the next
and Omaha.
That's the street, right? So I'm trying to build the network here so that when you come to visit us, that you're playing Mitchell and Sioux Falls on Thursday as a jump to Minneapolis or Omaha or Kansas City even or these other
Sioux
places
City,
later
Council
in the
Bluffs.
week. Let's build up these midweek shows for our local people here so that we're the Tuesday night stop on the the stage for our locals as well as for the national acts, right? Like
Exactly.
there's a reason we get national acts on Wednesdays and Thursdays, right? Like
when that'll
because they're not
change
playing
soon.
somewhere else.
I think
Right.
I think that's going to change soon. There's a general perception to even folks that live here, like even fellow musicians, that this is a venue or live culture, live music kind of desert. Like this is the drive-through state, right?
Right.
For
And it couldn't be further from the truth.
Exactly. Like you have on our side here, you got the lower room at Monument, you've got the park, you've got Hay Camp, you've got
Custer
the outdoor
Beacon.
stage. Yeah, there's all these these bigger rooms that like the way I look at it is like B breaking bands or like A bands that have just hit A level. If you want to like break it, mostly in terms of touring budget, not in terms of like talent or whatever, but just in terms of like the popularity
Draw.
Yeah, they're draw, but like because they won't have draw here at that level until they come play here a couple times.
Right.
So the challenge, and this is why this podcast and what you're doing is so damn important. Like once the word starts to get out that this is how it works here, and this is the level of show available, and this is what we're doing here, and there's a band to open for you that has a local draw that sounds good with you, because we have every flipping genre under the sun. Like
Right.
This is not going to be a desert for long, and
No.
I-90's very long, and we
Right.
got great shows on either end and a few in the middle of it that
Right, and they've been driving through us for years,
Exactly.
man, for years. And yeah, so we just want to build out that network, and some people have places
Yeah.
that you've been talking about. Hay Camp,
Yep.
obviously, Icon, what Corey Church has done out
Yep.
here, nice
Grey
enough
Goose,
entertainment, right? Grey Goose is a
yeah,
cool
shout
room,
out to
playing
Peter.
there this year. So my little run here, let me tell you about the little mini tour I got coming.
Yeah.
Hey, and
Heck
tell our
yes.
listeners too. I haven't even told our starts
Ladies
and
and
ends fans
gentlemen,
about
you
this
can
yet.
see Bubble Starts at
So June 27th, we are playing the Grey Goose and Pier. June 28th, we are
Nice.
playing the Custer Beacon.
Heck yeah.
The aforementioned Custer Beacon. My first time at these, ticketed
love that,
bigger
love
event
that
shows,
venue.
right?
You're gonna love the folks there.
Yeah, I can't wait. Well, and unfortunately, all my friends are out of town touring that weekend, right? So I can't get anybody to open for me or do it, right? So
Yep.
but we're gonna make it work. Well, then coming back, I'm actually going down to Colorado for vacation, right? Family vacation.
Nice.
Coming back, we're playing July 4th downtown for Yankton's fireworks, which is usually a pretty big deal on the Meridian there. We'll be opening for a national act. And then
Nice.
July 5th, we actually get to be the headlining act in Mitchell for their first Friday celebration, which will kind of be their biggest of the year, being on the holiday weekend and everything. So yeah, the starts and ends is really taking a big step into some bigger shows this year, and hence why I'm kind of pulling away from doing the every weekend shows with the band,
Yeah.
producing more songwriters rounds, just getting more original stuff out there, get the people out here used to seeing and hearing original music, so that when we
Yes.
pop these other big shows that I got in the oven baking right now, when I pop those off this summer, that people will be coming out, not just because it's a good time, but because they're kind of invested in these people, because they've been listening to the shows. They've been, following us online where we're promoting it. It's bringing it all together and really having the scene as the umbrella under which I can kind of bring all of my friends and introduce everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yep.
whether that's patrons or musicians, and more musicians with artists, and building this out, and to have I'd love to do a Four Winds Mitchell next year. Right. I'm already
Yeah.
working with both venues, 3 venues in town. Like, we like to keep it growing. So
Heck yes.
yeah, man, you're a
That's-
big part of that, because all these songs got to get recorded, right? All these artists got to get recorded too. And I hope Tom's able to continue doing what he's been doing at Cottonwood, and
Yep.
and continuing. And yeah, it's
And
so
that's-
important that we all keep doing exactly what we're doing.
Right, and that's an important point there too. There are multiple recording studios in the Black Hills. Flatiron, my buddy Scotty Miller from
Crow
Ed
Peak
Martha's.
Brewing, or Crow
Yep.
Peak.
Crow Peak Recording. That's Jerry Sutton from This Island Earth. He's the one. I think there's a couple folks involved with that, but that's the name I know. And then obviously Cottonwood is Tom Freer. Alex Massa puts together a lot of bands for folks that are trying to, do recordings and whatnot. He's a great creative musical director. I literally turned my dad's basement into my mix room. That's what I'm talking to you from right now. And we've tracked all Camp Comfort stuff in here, tracked the next Outside Kids. I'm like probably one season away from potentially opening my own commercial facility. I just, who likes paying rent? So
Yeah, exactly.
but the point I was going to make is none of us are in competition. Like it's the same thing with booking shows with our bands. Like there's artists that either my calendar doesn't work or stylistically I just know one of those guys are better, and send the work their way. We filmed our music video at Flatiron. Scotty has a great live room, a nice high
I
ceilings,
love that
so we can
space
put
that
lights.
he's got. Yeah, it's so
cool.
awesome, man.
I'm built for basements, man. That's why Cali didn't work out. Too many earthquakes, no basements. But yeah, I think the kind of last thought I'd leave, there's for folks just starting out, following a creative passion, whether they're a musician or they want to get into the tech side of things or they want to promote or they want to do anything, it's important to remember that there are an infinite number of tiers to get started on. You can organize your friends going to an open mic to see you play or to get your friend to go play, and you can ask if you can help run sound while they're doing it, all the way up to, interning at high level, quote unquote, professional venues. All you got to do is decide to start doing something, start making noise, literally, whatever that means for you, whatever your noise is. Just go do it. There's literally no reason not to. And I guarantee you, if you started it right now, the only thing you're going to beat yourself up for in a couple months is that you didn't start doing it sooner. So Get on it. We want to hear you at a show.
That's right. And one thing that we've been doing on the scene here is encouraging people to make themselves part of the scene.
Exactly.
Right? So that's really all it's about. Matt, thank you so much, man.
Of course.
It's been great to have your words and the same thoughts and feelings that I have about all of it come out of your mouth is so nice. And to learn more about you and your history is great. I hope that this brings you a few more artists to record and make that next great record.
Yep.
Well,
I was
Matt,
going to say,
you.
throw my email out there. Anybody listening to this that wants to make a record in the Black Hills, hit me up. Let's do it.
Well, that's right. We're going to do it. Well, thank you so much, Matt. And for everyone listening, thank you for joining us on The Scene.
Thanks, Bubba. You're the best.
Thank you so much for listening and sharing the show. For everything The Scene, go to patreon.com/thescenesd. Follow us on all your social media channels and make sure to make yourself part of The Scene.